Okay, I think we are now live. I'm going to give everybody just a few seconds here to join in, and then we'll get started. And so got a great conversation planned for today, and two very special guests that are with us as well. I'm sure many all recognize Kevin O'Leary. Kevin is here with us. Kevin is a strategic advisor to Start Engine, an investor in Start Engine, and a paid spokesperson as well. And so we want to welcome Kevin. Kevin, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Great. And then we also have Charles Yeomans, the CEO of Atombeam, that's with us today. And so what we're going to do today is have a conversation about Atombeam and what Atombeam is doing and why it's so timely in our world today with everything that's going on in the world of AI and data and all of these things. So we will have a little conversation to begin with between Kevin and Charles going into some of these topics. We're also going to have time at the end for Q&A. So if you do have any questions, I encourage everybody to submit those questions into the comments section here. We will take note of those questions and we'll go through them towards the end of our conversation today. So first off, my name is Josh Amster. I'm the Senior Vice President of Fundraising at Start Engine. And we have Atombeam here. I don't know if everybody knows Atombeam or not, but Atombeam is a company that is currently raising capital on Start Engine. They've raised over $8 million historically on Start Engine and are currently in a live fundraising right now that is raised close to $8 million. And their raise is live and is going to be closing in the middle of December. So there's a little bit of time left to invest in this offering. And given how all of their past offerings have gone with enormous wait lists, I think the last raise had a wait list of over $3.5 million worth of investment. There's clearly a lot of excitement around Atombeam and what they are doing. So Charles, I'd love first off to welcome you, but also if you don't mind just giving the listeners a quick overview on Atombeam, what you all are up to, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. Yeah, no, glad to. And thanks for having me. It's the great opportunity. Appreciate it. So what Atombeam's about is it's a software company, but we are not like most other software companies. We don't have for example, an application or something. What we have is a way of making data way more efficient and making it more secure for just about anything with a processor that's connected. And that really has implications that go way beyond sort of just a application or something that improves this or is better than that. What we're doing is we're changing how data is structured. And instead of thinking about how do you speed up networks, how do you get more capacity, how do computers work more efficiently, which typically is through faster networks, better hardware, faster chips, we're thinking about the structure of data itself. And so what we do in essence is we create a combination of code words, which are small representations of bigger chunks of data. And those code words might be 4 bits or 5 bits or 10. And the chunks of data that those represent might be 128 or 200. And so the consequence of this is that computers, because we leverage the fact that computers can do repetitive tasks really fast, like in microseconds, millionths of a second, because of that characteristic, what we do is we make computers more efficient. We make computers able to operate faster in networks, usually about 4 times faster, 4 times more bandwidth. And that adds up to a lot of consequences that have a lot of value for many who can't send all the data they need over a network, for example, or who, once the data is in the data center, have a hard time accessing it, or how to send the data from a little device that generally is going to be unencrypted to the data center. that is a lot of vulnerability and a lot of inefficiency. And that's what we address.
Amazing. Kevin, you hear companies pitch to you all day long, and you just heard a little bit about Atombeam and what they're doing. What excites you or interests you most about what they're up to?
Well, this narrative, this conversation with Charles is very, very timely. I don't know if everybody's watching, but Microsoft and Meta reported over the last 24 hours, and the stocks are getting crushed because of exactly this problem. It's everybody's starting to figure out that the cost of the data center build-outs for these companies to pursue their AI objectives is going to cost billions of dollars, and the amount of space and capacity and energy they need is beyond what they can be supplied right now in the American grid. So just to give you some numbers, there's a search going on over the next 24 months for 30 gigawatts of data center capacity, of which only 5 has been identified. And so any tool, platform, technology that can reduce the need for space in a data center or increase its capacity or its ability to process and reduce the requirement for more power and more server space is going to be highly coveted. And it sounds that's exactly what Atombeam is doing. So it's kind of like the right deal at the right time when the pain is really coming into the market. And just to give you some context of this, because there's really only 25 developers that work in this space. I'm one of them worldwide. And so what we do, and this is why this is such an interesting conversation, is we go to, here's what we need. For every 500 megawatts, we need 150 acres of land. We also need fiber. We need people, and we need water. But above all that, we need 500 megawatts of power. And typically, when a developer goes to build any kind of facility, like a warehouse or something, they ask for 10 to 30 megawatts. We're asking for 500. So the ratepayers can't afford that. They just can't afford to give us that in any state. It's just too much. Your power bill for the average residential user is going to go up 35% the next month. So we're scratching our heads along with the tenants, which are the big technology companies that Charles is servicing, figure out, okay, excuse my French, but what the fuck do we do? It's that simple. We have to find a way to be more efficient. We can't use up that much power to process the requirements. We just can't. We have to find a way to compress it in a very big way. And Charles is advertising up to 70%. Of course, he's going to get a lot of traction with that. And it sounds like he is.
Yeah.
So Charles, talk to us about that. What traction have you seen thus far, given the timeliness of everything that's going on?
Yeah, we have. So there's the commercial side and the government side. The government side, in particular, has caught on to this really fast because, for example, one thing that the way most DoD and allied countries communicate that all their units in the field and so forth, there's something called Link 16. Link 16 is 1980s tech. It's about 25 kbps, really. I mean, you may officially get higher, but that's reality. And you have aircraft that are generating gigabits per second, and you're trying to pick and choose what data to send. Well, they have figured out that if we can send 5 times more, which is about what we think we can do, then there's a lot of people out there that are pretty hot on this thing in the DoD. So not just the DoD, but we have contracts with the Space Force. Well, not DoD particularly, but Space Force, Air Force, Navy, all of those services. Not only that, the encryption piece of this thing is really significant. We've proven it mathematically, and we're submitting to a paper to IEEE for publication that the NSA has to look at. And this is heavy duty encryption that is being done super light. 98% of IoT data has no encryption. And it's a huge vulnerability. If you're how do you get into somebody's system? You can go in through a little temperature sensor and open a door for yourself. That is a huge vulnerability that is getting to be increasingly a focus of IoT network users. And that combined with the fact that IoT data is going up at a rate of a roughly close to 30% a year, 29% the last count. And you add it all up and all this data flowing in, and now you've got the data center problem that Kevin was addressing, which is a huge issue. Because how do you crunch all this data down and make it more efficient? So what we're doing in essence is we're making this data way more informationally dense, typically by 75% on average, which means all this data can be used by computers way more efficiently, because a computer can do things that we can't. It can look at a little code word and almost instantly, in a few millionths of a second, see the big chunk behind it. That means that we can effectively change how everything works. Now, who's the big ones that are using it? Well, you got DoD, you have the three-letter agencies, and you have, at the moment, we're focused on oil companies because they have so much data coming in from so many distant places that are going over satellites. And we're allied with Viasat on this and with Ericsson on this. It's a really important area for us, and that's where we're kind of kicking off our commercial side. But there's all kinds of other places that we're getting interest from. You name it, packaging companies and so forth.
Kevin, you have a very interesting perspective, being somebody that's in so many different industries and seeing so many different things. What opportunities, maybe beyond where Charles and Atombeam are right now, do you see for a business like this?
Well, every single vertical I'm involved in, and I'm an investor in pretty well all 11 sectors, one way or another. I mean, I do everything from insecticide to wireless charging to consumer goods and services, real estate development, you name it. One of the reasons, and people ask me all the time, why is the market so buoyant during all this volatility around the world and political volatility, is that most of the businesses that I invest in have already started to find efficiencies using some vertical application of AI. And so whether it's, let me give you an example. A very big vertical is watch insurance. I mean, it's a subset of jewelry. I'm a big watch collector. So the underwriters of watch insurance have a huge challenge in all these inbound requests for policies, thousands, 100,000 a day, asking to, insure this Rolex or this Patek Philippe or whatever it is. And 90% of them are just, a $15,000 policy, which they want to write, but they don't want a human being involved in deciding the risk arbitrage of the profile of the individual. They used to have to do that. Today, about a third of them in just the last 24 months are being processed through AI technology, and yes, they're knowing the policy online. And the actual loss rates are remaining the same. So the technology is good enough to match a human, and we'll expect to. But even those insurance companies, because I just had this discussion yesterday, the price of their data centers, and they're just rented. I mean, they're just renting it from whether it be Oracle or Amazon or Microsoft. That's their fastest growing cost. So they got to find, if this 75, I mean, the nutshell deal, that's almost a Shark Tank moment for Charles here, 75% efficiency in terms of space plus security built in. Well, that's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, it's now a race to who else can do it and how fast can he get scale and everything else. But everybody's going to look at this. I mean, if you have an old platform, if you have an old data center, that old means 24 months ago, you don't have the latest chipsets, you're going to look at this technology to get more productivity out of it for sure.
Great.
Everything goes back to data. Every sector of the economy, data is the new oil. That's what it is.
Right.
Every single sector uses data. If you can find a way to encrypt it, make it secure, and compress it, and not lose processing speed in doing it, well, that's it. It's that. I mean, that's the essence of this deal.
Right. And that, goes to actually something we consider really important, which is all of our patents. Like we have 69 patents now, and there's a good reason we focused on this because this is a really, really new idea. When I first came across this, when I was first told about this idea, first thing I did was started talking to patent lawyers and to data scientists at Stanford and Harvard, and everybody, oh, this is real, this is new stuff, so we were able to file these patents and get them. And
So Charles, your moat is these patents, I assume, right?
What? Sorry.
Your moat, your protection.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's the principal moat.
I mean, this is a good idea, and if I could rip it off, I would. But obviously, if you have the patents, can't do it because you're not going to get a large institution like the DoD to play ball if you're infringing on a patent.
Oh,
and
right.
I agree. One of the biggest initiatives and why there's so much capital going into figuring out data is defense on AI. If we don't lead in that, we're screwed.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm an ex-Navy intelligence officer. One of our board members is a 2-star retired admiral who ran all of the Navy's communication systems, and he recognizes. I see it. We talk to big-time admirals and generals, and they're seeing it. And there is no other way of doing this other than the way we've conceived of. It's
so 45% of the nation's data centers are sitting in Virginia. They've run out of power. The next stop is West Virginia. That's where the new sites are being developed, but it's all around Langley, and there's a reason for that. That's where it all started. Now you know what it is.
Yep. No, absolutely. It's a huge issue. They get it, and they're starting to get it. And some sectors, like some people in the Secretary of the Navy's office, some people in senior levels at Air Force, and certain people at the Space Force Space Development Agency, all see what we're doing. And we're getting a lot of inquiries from 3-letter agencies too, that are starting to say, wait a second, what is this? Let's look at it. So we're at the nascent stage of like just about to come out and be recognized for what this is. But it's even a little past that because some of the people now focusing on it are the real guys, the people that are the people who can push the button and take something and make it happen.
Well, I imagine that's where the capital comes into the equation, Charles, is Atombeam needs the capital to be able to become more widely recognized and break into these different spaces that we've already touched on. I guess talk to us a little bit about the capital raise, the purpose for it, what you're planning to do with the money. Share a little bit of insight there for us.
Sure. Yeah. So it comes down to this. So like we've really talked right here about the release product, which is we call NERPAC, which is about losslessly reducing this data and encrypting it, sending it to the data center. That's what we're selling now today. But where we really are talking about going is not only that, but also the idea of a separate, different kind of application that's focused on video, images, that kind of thing. That combined, which also reduces and makes more informationally dense, those kinds of things, which are lossy, what they call lossy stuff. So if you combine those two, then they can feed a generative AI like the ChatGPTs of the world. Except that instead of using language as the basis, we're using these code words, these informationally dense chunks of data, which give us the capability of making this kind of data usable for a generative AI that isn't language. It might be time series data. It might be pieces of a video. But those, when you put it all together, can become a more efficient and fully multimodal. That is to say, it can use any kind of data, generative AI. So this could have two effects. One, it reduces the amount of time it takes to train a big model. Like ChatGPT 4 supposedly took 5 months or so to train. We could probably reduce that. In our testing, in our prototypes, we reduce it dramatically. Second thing is it's multimodal. Third thing is in operating mode, we've shown it work, that generative AI, using these little chunks of data. We've shown it work on regular computers like a Power Mac. So those things add up to potentially what Kevin is getting to, which is how do you reduce the amount of power that a data center needs? Well, you make the data more efficient, not just drive up the power of chips. The other thing is too, is that even chips can be faster because the different subsystems on a chip have to send shuttle data back and forth. And so we're getting inquiries from some big data, from big chip companies. Why? Because we can probably speed up their chips themselves by moving the data around faster, not only between chips on a logic board and between servers in a data center, but also right inside the chip itself.
I want to keep this moving
fast. Sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. We're getting tons of questions from the audience, and I want to make sure that we can address some of these questions, as many as we can. I guess the first one, though, for Kevin, one of the viewers is asking, how should investors evaluate companies in data and AI when considering whether to make an investment?
Very simple, and I get this every day. What problem are they solving? That's it. Because that's question number one. Question number two, if it creates economic value, what moat do they have around them? Because in software, margins get crushed in SaaS models if they can't protect it. And they get crushed within 36 months. So it's always, is the problem they're solving material so that the IRR, the internal rate of return on investing in it, is so good that they pick up a lot of traction? And number two is, what's the moat? Those are the two questions you have to ask, because the long-term value is the fact that it becomes the standard. I mean, what happens with these deals is you get your first big customer, and it's, I don't know, let's say it's DoD or whatever it is. Once they use it and they've standardized on it, then everybody else that is in the same predicament wants to use the same thing. And if you're the only option, it's a really good place to be for 3 years. And by then you're now dealing with the customers, and they're saying, well, we want this feature added, we want this feature added, we want this feature added. And nobody wants to switch when it's working. Nobody wants to retrain staff. Nobody wants to do new firmware updates if they don't have to. It's the other thing I was thinking about with this one, which I don't think Charles has mentioned, maybe he can answer this, is in the AI space right now, as NVIDIA and others assume when they start competing with NVIDIA, Amazon's trying to do a chip and everybody else as well. The upgrade cycle is now 24 months, where the chip is getting 30, 40% more efficient. The problem with that is when I deliver the data center to a tenant, I haven't put the stacks in. I've just built the power for them, the platform, the fiber, and all of the covenants they put in place, the redundant power generation. That's $2 billion. Let's just go with a 500 megawatt. They'll spend another $2 billion just rolling in the stacks. That's a $4 billion investment.
Yeah.
And they know 2 years later they're going to have to roll in the stacks again. So they look for the state not to give them sales tax again on that. That's one big problem. So the really smart states like North Dakota and South Dakota are starting to work on these policies. But if this software could get another 12 months out of the use of the first chipset, that's a huge savings. And I'm just wondering, Charles, why your model doesn't start charging for percentage savings?
Well, that's kind of what we do. I mean, our SaaS is based on the amount of data, right? So in effect, if say you have a group of pump jacks sending 13, 15 gigabits, a day over satellites. We're charging on the basis of how much data you originally.
Okay, I like that. That's important. You didn't mention that's very important, because the bigger it gets, the more efficient it is, the more money you make. And that's the way it should be. I would be happy to pay you if you gave me significant savings.
Well, No, we chopped that guy down by from 13.6 gigabits a day down to 3.3.
So Atombeam is letting it
To do it.
every cent of savings you're getting incrementally more the more you save.
We basically take a piece of the savings in effect. I mean, that's what it's not, the pricing isn't that exactly. It's just saying how much data are you sending? Okay, here's the price.
And the price varies based on the data.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's very good. You may want to think about the CapEx savings that you're going to provide on this.
No,
I will tell.
It's true. You know, I got to tell you, the pricing thing is hard. That is because there's nothing else like this, right? I mean, it's not compression. It's a different thing, and there's nothing that compares to it. And so we're starting greenfield with, okay, here's a brand new idea and a brand new way of approaching it. Everybody else thinks chips and faster and networks and more satellites and stuff. We're saying, no. Let's think about what we're actually doing and sending instead. And so nobody's done that.
The chip thing is a problem because you have to remember that requires a complete. It's like renovating a restaurant, which you have to do every 5 to 7 years. But now we're talking about renovating a data center every 24 months to 36 months.
Yeah,
that's really expensive.
Really, $50,000 chips. Yes.
Yeah, and these chips are not getting cheaper, and the demand. So we in the real estate space have never seen anything like this ever, because we're the guys that have to raise the capital to do the build out of the infrastructure. We're like the picks and shovels, but we also signed contracts for 5 nines, which means the data center has to be up 9.9999% of the time. That means it can only be down 14 seconds a month. Otherwise, there's a massive penalty to the original developer who's hosting it. That's me. And so I really care about this stuff. It's really, really getting complicated. But the amount of capital earmarked for this is unprecedented.
Well, launching geosynchronous satellites, that's a $500 million exercise. And once they're up there, the cycle, think about this, the cycle is 15, 20 years. If you're launching LEO satellites, the cycle is 5 years. Data, I mean, the amount of capacity and so forth of those kinds of things is pretty fast. I mean, if you're talking of 10-year difference in the cycle time, the amount of capacity the satellite can handle changes a lot. And the consequences are, yeah, I can extend the life of a geosynchronous satellite. I can send 4 times more data through the same thing.
Well, I think that's the story of Atombeam. It's productivity and efficiency. That's it.
Yeah. And that's not a minor point, right? So,
but there's a huge pain point. So it's solving a problem. And number one thing is, what problem is it solving? Is it worth economic value? And it is. And then how big is the moat? How many of these patents are enforceable, et cetera?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and you mentioned that before, Charles, and that was actually another question from the viewers. How many patents does Atombeam hold? I think you did mention that, but just to reiterate it.
We have 69, including both the issued and allowed patents. I can't remember it's mostly issued. There's a few that are allowed that we haven't paid the fee yet, right? But it's effectively issued. And then we have another, I think it's 97 that are pending now. And part of the reason there's so many is because we're really talking about 3 different products, and each one has unique characteristics. And we have a very aggressive approach to thinking about our moat and how we protect all this, because it's really a deep level innovation, and it implies all sorts of other things, like this whole thing with being able to encrypt at the same time we're compacting the data. That is an idea that our very brilliant mathematician came up with, like a year ago. And we have a prototype, it works, and it's going to be a game changer. It's such a big deal. Think about this. You create the data in some little gadget on the edge. It gets encrypted, it gets compacted, it gets sent all the way to the data center, and it can work like on a little 10-cent ASIC and come over to the data center. Once it's there in the data center, if somebody, it's still encrypted, it's small, like 75% smaller. And now if somebody steals the data, they can't do it. They can't use it. It's encrypted. Unlike now where you just compress it and store it. And this is encrypted in the data center. So forget it. You're not going to be able to use it.
Right. I want to remind everybody that you can see along the ticker at the bottom is a URL, invest.atombeamtech.com. If you go to that URL, you'll be able to view more information about Atombeam and their offering. You'll be able to see their offering documents that are publicly available for everybody to see. Again, just a reminder, Atombeam in its entire crowdfunding history has raised more than $16 million from the crowd. The raise that they currently have live is almost at around 8 million. And they've raised more than 8 million historically on our platform. And as I said, the last round oversubscribed and had nearly a $4 million wait list. There was so much demand for people to invest in it. So there's a lot of excitement around this offering, and their current campaign is expected to close in the middle of December. So there's a limited amount of time left here. I think we have time probably for one last question. Kevin, how do you think data and AI will transform over the next 12 months?
If you think about the U.S. economy, 62% of jobs are created by companies between 5 and 500 employees. So the majority of job creation is small business in America. Up till the last couple of years, they couldn't afford AI solutions. And I'm just talking about companies sort of in the 500 million, 600 million and below. I have many of those in our portfolio. Most of them now have taken on subscription services to address. I like to use examples that we can understand. The wine business, an ancient business in America, west of the Mississippi, 3 tiers of distribution, east of the Mississippi, 2 tiers. The biggest problem they have is anticipating consumer demand for varietals of grapes that they have to grow a year earlier. It's a huge miss for them because they have to deal with weather and everything else. Even a small vineyard now, 50,000 cases, which is a small vineyard, can afford to pay for AI data on weather systems, on consumer demand. And because the pandemic ripped through their industry, 50% of their sales direct to consumer are 39-pound cases. They have the data on what is being purchased where. So, for example, last week we learned that the #1 varietal in Florida, we have a company that sells about 3 million bottles a year. They found out that Moscato, which is a sweet wine, is the #1 varietal in California, in the south of California, and in Florida. So they are now buying bladders of Moscato and growing Moscato grapes, an ancient grape. This is all AI based, and they're only paying for that something like $7,000 a month in subscription service just for that vertical of analysis. Now, who's providing that is a much bigger server that is being managed by, a different service, and that one happens to be hosted on AWS. But I listened today. I go right back to how we started this conversation. The market is sensing the problem we're facing. I don't think there could be a better time for Atombeam to come, dancing along here, because we're in big trouble on this data center stuff. Really big trouble. Really big trouble. There's not enough capacity for the next 24 months. So you said 12. I'm giving you 24 months. We don't have it. We don't have the power. We don't have the locations. The pricing of this stuff's going to go up unless there's more efficiency brought in. So if Atombeam can provide this and get this encryption thing going, because when you have consumer data, one of the problems you have is litigation when that leaks. So you really need security on this stuff. It sounds like a good crowd product for sure. Just if you want to own a piece of block and tackle, picks and shovels of the internet, be agnostic to which one of these behemoths wins and loses. This is a good one because it just solves a huge pain point. It's that simple. You don't need a lot of complexity here.
No, true.
That's
mean,
it.
I agree with you, Kevin. I mean, it's like it is. I mean, I'm constantly amazed by this thing and what it can do, and we almost are still on a voyage of discovery here with this thing, because it's kind of like we entered a cave and here we go down this thing and here's this great gallery of stalactites and stalagmites, right, that you weren't expecting. And like the whole thing with the encryption, we can do intrusion detection. Lockheed is all over that. And there's all these things that you discover when you say, let's start over. Let's not assume that we're just going to take some human radio recognizable something and turn it into binary. When we say, here, what computers can do, let's take advantage of that. And that changes everything. And it's so fundamental that I don't think we've discovered everything this can do. It's almost like really we don't.
So really, Charles, the risk in the deal is execution.
100%.
You screw it up, that's on you.
Absolutely.
The market is there for this stuff. There's no question of that.
Yep. No, I agree with you. This is about execution. And one of our big things is getting the right people. That's how you execute, right? And so we have really top people now. Some serious dudes here, a passel of geniuses, and some very practical people, and who've been there and done that over and over. So it's
you need serious dudes. I mean, that's part of the protection.
No, yeah.
But also try and close some of these big 3-letter agencies. Those are just, they become the marketers for you. That's what happens.
Yep. The NSA is badgering me right now. So yes,
I would hope so, because that makes total sense for them. But this will find its way into a part of the solution of data centers if it really works the way you're saying. Because I deal with this every day, and the problem is big. It's big.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think there's obviously a lot of excitement, and it's very timely with everything that's going on in our world today. I want to quickly thank Kevin and Charles for their time today. These are two very busy gentlemen that are spending time with us to have this discussion. And so thank you both for your participation in today's chat. Again, as just a reminder, if you want to get more information, please go to invest.atombeamtech.com. Again, that's invest.atombeamtech.com, and you'll get to see all the information that a prospective investor would want to see when taking a look at this opportunity. So again, Kevin, Charles, thank you both so much for your time. We so appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And we hope you all have a great rest of your day and a very happy Halloween. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.